Lighter made in disciples, we LED by Christ. Tune in, y'all, we shining so bright. C.W. Stevens, he the host with the vision. Bringing truth and light, let's complete the mission.
And that's exactly what we're here to do. Welcome to the BeLED podcast, where faith meets culture and discipleship shines. I'm your host, C.W. Stevens. Let's step into the light and be led. Every journey begins with the spark. Every disciple is called to shine. This is the BeLED Spotlight. All right, welcome to the BeLED podcast, where I have a guest here with me today, Riley Watkins. Riley, could you introduce yourself and let us know a little something about your come to Jesus moment, your conversion story?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Riley Watkins, and I'm the camp manager at Camp Oak Haven. I've been working in ministry for almost 20 years now. It's weird to say that. And when I was 11, I remember there were some people coming over to my house to be baptized. We had a pond growing up, and some of our close friends were coming over to get baptized. And I've grown up in the church since I was 2 days old. That was when my parents took me. 2 days old was my first time in church, and so I was in it all the time and knew it all the time, and so it was kind of one of those things where it's like I'd been waiting to really feel something, and I didn't know what it was supposed to feel like when you wanted to be saved. And but that night when those people came to be baptized, something clicked in my brain, where all I knew one thing, and the one thing is I wanted to be with Jesus, because I saw the love that people had for him when they would get saved. And I said, well, I want to be with him too. And this is a step I know that I need to do to be with Jesus. And also what motivated me the most is my fear of not being with Jesus. Right. So my beginning of my knowledge of God was very much like it talks about in Psalms chapter 1, about the beginning of the knowledge of God is the fear of God, And so I feared God. I feared what would happen to my soul if I weren't with Jesus. And I knew that I needed to be with him. I knew he was the way to salvation. And so it was a very logical decision. And it wasn't until I was in college where I really started developing the proper type of relationship that was motivated out of love and not guilt or fear. So, I kind of had a two-part coming to Jesus. Yeah. The initial was getting baptized, and then when I was 11 in my pond, a gross, scummy, pond in my backyard, to being in college and learning about spiritual gifts and how Jesus loves us, and our relationship is supposed to be of love and not of fear. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I came. And that was kind of the most recent kind of coming to Jesus was in college, but getting baptized when I was 11.
Yeah. I like that. And that just reminded me, I just came across, I don't know if it was you that and put it together, or if it was goodness gracious, I forgot his name. I was about to say it. He's the youth minister at Belton.
Leland.
Yeah, there was the spiritual discipline,
spiritual gifts assessment. Yeah, Leland put that together for Camp K one year, and I think he borrowed a lot of it from like a website that was like Disciple something. It was like a mission trip website where you could pay to go on a mission trip with your kids. I don't remember what it's called, but yeah, I've used that several times since then, because it's a really good spiritual gifts assessment for teenagers.
It is.
Yeah,
well, I'm using it for adults too.
It's good. Yeah, it's really good. I like it. But yeah, I still have that file somewhere. It still has the Camp K logo on it. So
I just converted it. I'm using it. I'm preaching. I had a class that I was teaching, or a sermon that I preached last week, where I was talking about spiritual gifts, right, and I used it for that. I took that and put it into my sermon. I'm going to use it again as well, Friday and Sunday. So that turned out to be good. So what we're talking about is mountaintop moments. That's what this whole episode is about. And what I've noticed, my first experience going to camp as a kid, I went to Camp Quanania, and it was different. It was different because up until that point, we had only gone to we would go to youth conferences.
Mm-hmm.
We're predominantly black church. They don't go to camp.
Right.
They don't go to camp at all. And so I'm already feeling awkward because I'm on the chocolate chip and the cookie. And we're at camp, and it's weird. The whole time is weird. But then they take us out on the, and I guess that's the mess hall. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting out in front of the mess hall. and then they turned the lights off,
Yeah.
and we just started singing.
Hmm.
And I'm looking up at the sky, and all of a sudden everybody's the same. Not
Yeah.
just because it's dark, but it's
Yeah.
just like, wait a minute, we all love Jesus. We're all about the same thing. And for the rest of the week, it was just different,
Yeah.
and that's where I first got the idea of, I was like, that's what I first started asking the question, like, why are we worshiping in different places?
Yeah.
And I started asking those questions, and I would ask our youth minister, and whenever we got to the point to where I stumbled into the pulpit and stumbled into planning a church, I made sure I said every single Sunday, this is not a black church, this is not a black
Yeah.
church. And I was intentional about that. And camp was the moment where that idea sparked.
Hmm.
And so my life was changed forever because of camp. My kids' life are changed forever because of camp. My wife, everybody.
Right.
And so it's people like you who make that possible.
Hmm.
I'll ask you first, what is it about camp that opens the door to moments like that?
I think it's more than just a simple answer. I think that's kind of multifaceted. I'll begin by saying, for me personally, I had a similar experience that you did. I remember, I grew up going to Peach Valley Christian Youth Camp with Charles Goodnight, and then with Michael Orr, going to leadership camp that I'm now directing with him. And I went to a few other camps growing up. I did one up in near Tulsa, Oklahoma, called Burnt Cabin Christian Camp, and I really just went there for a girl. She ended up marrying a youth minister, anyways. We're still good friends. And then I went to a camp with my cousin Garrett, that his brother Bo is a youth minister and has been forever. That they run and go to. It's up in Rock Springs, Texas, called Camp Eagle.
Uh-huh.
And I was offered to go for free, so I went. And I remember, it's a big camp. I mean, we're talking like 200 kids, 250 kids, big camp. And I was sitting in worship, and it's a big outdoor, beautiful pavilion up on the upper banks of the Nueces River, hill country, gorgeous, part of our state. And we're singing. And then the guy speaking told all the youth ministers to come up front and stand up on the stage. And I remember looking at these guys all week, Bo in particular, because I looked up to him a lot, older cousin of mine going into youth ministry. And I remember looking at those guys and going, man, these guys are changing the lives of these kids. Like they're doing something amazing. And I remember talking to Bo and saying, how do you have time to do this? He said, this is what I do for a living. Like, this is my job. I went, you can do this for a job. Like you can help people through struggles. You can work for a church and people pay you to do this. And so like in my brain, it clicked like, oh my gosh, like this is what I want to do. Like camp is what I want to do. This part of the ministry is what I want to do. And camp is the fun part of ministry as a youth ministry. It's like your go week, and that was my first kind of mountaintop moment with camp, is that it spurred me on to want to work in ministry. And from that moment on, that's the direction I was heading. I had a few detours along the way, but that's what got me there.
Right.
So camp is what, and I hear that story so often with lots of guys, is that camp is what inspired them to go to ministry, and females alike. And man, it was amazing, to see that and know that I could do that. So that was, I think, for me, watching the mentors is what was important at camp for me. And then, when you start directing camp and you start seeing how it affects kids, I think the reason that camp can be so effective is because I've always felt like camp is just a tiny, minute glimpse of heaven. Like we're for 7 days, we are singing, worshiping, learning, being around like-minded people. There's always some troubled people around that may not be that way, but at the most part, we are focused on God.
Right.
And heaven will be so much better because there will be no sweat or bugs,
Right.
or uncomfortable mattresses. But at the same time, I think it's because all of the distractions of the world are away.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're transported to somewhere different. And it doesn't happen instantaneously, man. Kids don't really get it until like Wednesday, Thursday.
Right.
And then by Friday, they're like, we don't want to leave.
Right.
And so it gives us a minute to slow down, to realize that there is a God, there is a creator. He does love us. We do have issues, but he's here for them. And that it gives us a better worldview of that there's more people in the world who think like us and love God like us and want to help us do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the world we live in now, you don't see that in public schools anymore. You don't see it in the workplace anymore. You're just go on your cell phone all the time, just, and so I think making people slow down is really a key. And that's not just the only thing. It's also about what they're being fed at camp. Like
Right.
I've been to some camps, heard some people go to camps, and it's a fun camp. Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Go ride your go-karts. Nothing wrong with having fun. But something that's been special about leadership camp is just the way that we're presenting the word to kids.
Mhm.
And we're encouraging them and telling them, you're not tomorrow's leader. You're today's leader. You
Yeah.
can do this now. And I remember that spurred me on as a camper, and so I think it's important because it takes our distractions away. It puts us together and focuses on God.
Right.
And it just kind of opens up our worldview to show us that there's more to life than TikTok and public school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I was just talking about that last week, my last podcast episode about cutting off the excess, like Shabbat, Sabbath,
yeah,
and it's getting rid of the excess, and then being able to hear from God, having a listening
Right.
heart,
Right.
and I think that for me that was my response to it, but I think it's also a glimpse of heaven as well.
yeah, and that's a way that I've never thought about putting it. Is it's an extended Sabbath,
Yeah.
and like it's almost for a lot of teenagers, it's a forced Sabbath.
Yes.
And I see them come here and go through a grieving process of not having their cell phones, and then by the end of the week they're like, I don't want it back.
Right.
And so it's biblical, God knows what he was doing when it comes to Sabbath. He knows that man needs a time to just sit back and do and not be responsible for the things in life and focus on him. And Sundays and Wednesdays aren't enough for that. An hour or two, it's not enough. It's a checkbox. And so I think that's why camp is effective, and it kind of creates a twofold problem in that the moment you graduate high school, it's gone, and so then you have to like make an effort to go find those kinds of places and people.
Mhm.
And that's why the church is important. And that's where the church comes in. And that's where the church is failing, I think, too. So
True. I agree. I agree. I've tried so hard to get our grown folks to realize like this is beneficial, and we still should be there should be adult camp like you do the retreats and
Yeah.
such. There should be moments in time where we just stop, separate ourselves from the quote unquote normal world,
Sure.
and have a listening heart.
Right.
But they're so afraid of their back hurting and so
Yeah.
afraid of bugs they've never seen
Yeah. Yeah.
that it doesn't happen. But I think it's important.
I agree.
So I wanted to ask the greatest mountaintop moment that you've ever seen, because like whenever I was thinking about it, I was thinking about like Jesus on the mount, and he sees it's the transfiguration moment, and then I also thought about whenever you were saying that, I thought about Elijah, how he thought he was alone until he realized that there were others, and so that makes me think about that as well. What is, and if you want to give multiple, you can, but what are some of the greatest mountaintop moments you've ever seen at camp, or the greatest moments or moment? Either one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. But I remember one specific, the most recent one I remember is last year, 2024. We were at the pool watching a camper give her life to Christ and getting baptized. And prior to that, we had been having, a lot of issues here at the campground itself, septic system issues, all kinds of issues. And since we got this place, there's been a lot of problems of trying to make it work. And there was at one point, I remember we were dealing with the septic tank behind cabins 1 and 2. And those, at one point, I remember having to get down into the septic tank, and we're trying to fix it. Yeah, like I am standing in absolute refuse, right?
Oh wow.
And it is 110 degrees outside, and Brenda's helping me. And I remember just going, what am I doing? What have I done? This is insane, right? Like, and then God used that moment of doubt. And when I was standing there watching that girl get baptized, I never say that I hear a voice of God. I really don't think I do, but I do think that the Spirit talks to me and speaks to me in ways that I can't understand. But I felt a resounding answer in that moment watching that girl get baptized that says, this is why you do this.
Yeah,
And I went, okay, all right.
I love that.
You know, I need a reminder sometimes of that because I get so frustrated so easily at the issues we face out here and not having enough money to fix them, or and then I realize, man, Riley, you're missing the big picture. And so God reminding me of the big picture or some of those big mountaintops moments for the past 3 years since I've been caretaker here. Some other times at camp for me have been getting to baptize my nieces, when we were at Camp Cisco, Lake Cisco Christian Camp, and getting to just see people grow. Seeing second generation campers come in was a big deal this year.
Yeah,
And that shows that we've stood the test of time and we weren't defeated by COVID, which killed so many camps. And there's just been so many. Getting to be one of the first campers ever at camp back in 2000. And I'm directing with Michael. That was a mountaintop moment. And when we get to stand together and sing under the elephant barn in the dark, and or when we see a kid who for 4 years at camp refuses to do anything leadership wise and then steps up and preaches an amazing sermon,
wow.
like a quick devo one morning, and you're like, okay, he's still working. And so I've always said, as long as I see leaders being made here and God working here, I'll keep doing what I'm doing. I'll keep standing in the septic tanks.
Right.
I'll swim in them if I have to, because places like this are special, and they're growing fewer and far between, where you can come to a safe place to grow your faith. And that's really what we're about here. And that's the biggest mountaintop moment for me, is watching this piece of land just, make differences in people's lives, make eternal differences in people's lives.
Right.
So,
Right. All right. So I'll end it with this. I always ask everybody a top five. And so my top five, and I should have asked you ahead of
all right.
time, it's going to be on the spot.
That's the way they should be.
Top five camp songs.
Oh man. Okay. So right now, lately, man, gratitude has been in my heart. And we first started singing it this summer, and I get goosebumps when I sing that song. And I forget that it reminds me, of just so many things. So that's definitely number one, or it's in there. I don't know if I'm going 5-1 or not, but it's in there.
Okay.
And then all-time favorite in that top five is Here I Am to Worship.
Okay.
Because that line, and it's the line that, light of the world, you came out of the darkness, and it's really speaking in the ways of that, how Jesus sacrificed so much so that we could be with him. And so he deserves all of our worship. And then listen, I'm going to go old school, man. When I hear the song Sanctuary, it just makes me think of church camp.
Yeah.
Because growing up, I grew up in a very conservative, tiny church where they didn't sing camp songs. They had to have elders meetings. Actually, they didn't have elders. They had to have men's business meetings to see if it was biblical to have a water fountain in the church, right? So camp songs to me are important. And I remember that was the first song they sang at camp, my first year at camp, was Sanctuary. And so that song means so much to me. And especially when you really listen to the words. Those are the first two that really pop in my mind. And then I am a sucker for any of the 5-part harmonies or the 4-part harmonies, where you're singing different, like, so Someday or The Greatest Commands or any of those. Those are all amazing, especially when you're singing them with the lights out and people are really just singing like they're singing to their Savior. And so those will fill in the last few spots, any of those really. But Gratitude's been the one that's been on my heart lately. I love that song a lot.
Yeah, I kind of think that's why churches have gotten so dark here lately, because they've gone to camp and experienced the singing in the darkness. So now everybody's turning the light down.
Yeah, they try to. I mean, camp kind of like invokes an emotional response in some ways. You got to be careful with that, not to manipulate people with. But there's no reason we can't have that 365 days of the year. That feeling where we're close to God, and if you get the right, kind of mentality in the church, I think you can do it.
Yeah.
It takes time, and it just takes time.
All right. So that was my time with Riley Watkins. Riley, if you would say anything to the people listening, well, first off, how can they support Camp Oak Haven? And then what would you say to encourage them to have their youth attend leadership camp?
Right. So to support Camp Oak Haven, there's lots of things you can do. We always tell people it's not just about, monetary donations. We have work weekends throughout the year where you can come and put your skills to the test and help us fix things around here. You can send your kids to our camp. You can get your churches to come to our camp. You can host your family reunions here at this camp. You can host your church retreats, and we're flexible with whatever that. So just, use our place, talk about us to everybody. because we're kind of a small little tadpole in a big ocean of camps. And so, and then if you do want to donate, you can go to our website to campoakhaven.com/donate. And we have an ability to do that online. It's all tax deductible. We send you a letter at the end of the year and your money goes directly to the camp. It goes nowhere else. And so every one of your dollars gets used to fix something or make something to make this place a better place for kids. And then I will, I am 100% biased about leadership camp. I've been to a lot of different camps and they're all been great. But there's something different about leadership camp. And one, I will argue till I'm blue in the face that we have the best food out of any camp.
True.
I mean,
True.
I've had other camp food and people brag about it and I get there and I'm like, man, slap this stuff. What is this? Like this is leadership camp food is legit, man. You will leave having gained weight and you will be well fed.
Yep.
Not only by food, but you'll be well fed spiritually here because everything that we do is done with so much intent, like intentional spiritual purpose. We don't just do anything willy-nilly. We write our own curriculum. Nothing is bought. Nothing is out of the box. I mean, we're doing stuff from scratch. We do everything to keep your kids safe. I mean, in my mind, we're doing camp with excellence in the best way possible that you can. We might be low tech, we might be small, but I think there's something special about what we're doing. And every kid that's ever come through leadership camp has always loved it.
Yeah.
So it's just great. Send your kids to leadership camp. Go check out the website, leadershipcamp.com or .org. And you got a whole year so you can send your kids to camp because we just had it. So we do some retreats here and there. We do retreats for girls and young adult retreat coming up in December too.
All right. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you, man.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Yo, you. Yeah, you. Sitting there listening to podcasts all day, talking about one day I'll get serious about my faith. What are you waiting for? Jesus already died and rose again. He's not doing it twice. It's time to get off the spiritual couch and do something. Stop scrolling. Start shining. Here at Discipleship College, tuition's free because Jesus paid it all. All we ask? Pick up your cross daily and follow him. So what are you waiting for? Go be the light. Be led. Side effects of discipleship may include joy, peace, persecution, and unshakable purpose. Ask your minister if following Jesus is right for you.
All right. And so I have another person who I would like to introduce. He is most definitely a light emitting disciple. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hey everyone, I'm Pristine Hysten. There's not nothing much about me, I guess.
Oh no, there is a lot. There is a lot. So what I usually do, every guest, I want to ask them, when did your journey begin? What is your road to Damascus, coming to Jesus moment? When did that happen for you?
I think it was probably like the year or so after I got married. There was just a lot of things where, I think God was showing me a lot of things, but really I think that's when I finally just decided I need to pick up my cross, it's this thing's about Jesus. It's not about me.
Right.
And I guess that's the short version.
That's the short version
of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And see, I had a come to Jesus moment in 5th grade, and then I had one again in adulthood to where it was just like, okay, there's more to this. And I know in my time, people would they would have that moment and they're like, okay, I need to be rebaptized or this or that or the other. I didn't go that far with it, but I was just
me neither. Yeah.
I'm just more dedicated to the mission,
Yeah. It's almost like a awakening, I was baptized when I was super young, and it wasn't like I went off into the world and did anything, but it was like I feel like a special moment where God really grabbed my attention and I guess called me to him in a way.
So here's what makes Pristine special. Pristine grew up as the child of a missionary, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And tell the audience where you were born.
I was born in a place called Mito, Japan. So all me and my 3 siblings, we were born over there and raised over there. Mainly, we grew up in a place called Shizuoka, which is the home of Mount Fuji.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's right dead center, Midland, Japan.
Yeah. And so at what age did you guys move back to the States?
We moved when I was like 12. So right when I was going into the 6th grade. So
Yeah. So are you bi trilingual? You know 3 languages too?
no, I wish I did,
Oh,
but I'm bilingual.
bilingual. Okay.
Very shaky Japanese though.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting a lot.
Okay.
Forgetting a lot.
You gotta practice that, man.
I know.
I wish I would be doing that all the time if I had.
Yeah.
Fluent.
I need to be better about it.
So what I was just talking about, what our listeners just heard was Riley talking about some of his mountaintop moments. Perfectly timed. The mountaintop moments. I said mountaintop moments and then thunder rattled. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear that, but so tell me about either the greatest mountaintop moment that you've witnessed at camp
Mhm.
or the greatest mountaintop moments.
Sure. I think the first one that comes to mind, and I always like the subtle ones, you know, like where it's I'm trying to think how to say it. I guess Tim Mackey always says like this the place where heaven and earth like get really thin, you know, and you just really feel God's presence. There's this kid that's been coming to camp last few years, and he's been in my cabin. And he just comes from a really rough background, and you know, he's hasn't had a fair deck of cards handed to him in life, you know.
Right.
But you know, and of course, for that reason, he's kind of ostracized and bullied sometimes, and sometimes even at camp. But this year, you know, during one of our cabin connect times, like a cabin devo time, I asked the guys like, "Hey, what was," kind of a similar question you were asking, you know, what was a moment you saw Jesus? You know, what was a moment where you felt his presence? And this guy who's, you know, usually kind of silly, not super serious, just all of a sudden became like super stoic and, you know, in a very eloquent way, better than what I'm about to say, probably. You know, he said, you know, there's not a lot of people who like me. There's not a lot of people who pay attention to me. And at school, I feel unwanted, and nobody likes me, basically. That's what he said. But he said, but there are these 2 kids who have been really kind to me this week and took me in as friends. And that's how I saw Jesus. I saw Jesus through them.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, that was one of those things where, I mean, I wasn't involved in it. You know, I didn't ask those kids to step in and just be kind to him, but they did. And, you know, I remember kind of observing it, and at first they were kind of like, what's wrong with this kid? You know, this kid's kind of weird, but they just kind of went with it. And, you know, it wasn't anything super like we're, you know, we know this is like a good action, or, you know, this is charity or whatever. They just legitimately just took him in as a friend. And I mean, it was super impactful for him.
Yeah.
And like he said himself, it was a way he saw Jesus.
Yeah.
And so that was a moment where it's like, man, like God's working. And
that's it.
Yeah.
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 The Riley had explained it as being like camp is kind of where we get a preview of heaven.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I talked to Riley about one of my mountaintop moments and the nighttime singing as a kid. You know, because our church did not go to camp,
Mm-hmm.
but singing under the stars at night, and it was the realization that, okay, why are we separate, right? And I'm talking about black church, white church. Why are we separate? And then, like, why can't we do this all the time? Why can't this be a thing? And that prompted how I've done the majority of things in ministry so far. And that is how I do ministry. I mean, I know that racial reconciliation is the gospel, but it speaks to the power of the gospel.
It does. It's, for me, it's like a testament, right? Like it's a physical proof that we're living the gospel. And I mean, you know, at church camp, you see that. And I see that a lot when we're just kind of you know, thinking of heaven, when we're just kind of playing and relaxing together.
Yeah.
And there's just something about, especially during electives, you know, you'll see kids just having fun and like not worried about where they have to be next, and, you know, all those things. And it just makes me feel like we're back in Eden.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's just for a moment.
Yeah.
So
It's cool. It's so cool. And then out here, you have places like the Oak Grove, and it's just like, dang, this
yeah,
if this is as beautiful as it is here,
Yeah.
what must the Garden of Eden look like? You know?
yeah. Riley's doing an amazing job taking care of this place.
Yeah.
I keep telling him, like, man, it's so beautiful here.
It is.
It's so
It is.
beautiful.
I don't like cutting the little grass I have in front of my house, and he got this.
Yeah,
He got all these acres and stuff to keep
Yeah.
up with.
yeah.
But it's beautiful, man. Him and his
Uh-huh.
family,
And
they're
it's
killing it.
and I know that, like, even if some of these campers might not be able to put it to words, like they're experiencing the same thing we're experiencing, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not just our camp. That's the thing. There's dozens of camps.
Yeah.
That come in, probably bring 50 to 100 people.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's impacting thousands of people
Yeah.
every year. And it's I jokingly say to Riley, I'm like, I think instead of being the camp caretaker, you should call yourself the camp gardener,
Yeah.
because that's kind of what he's doing. He's taking a plot of land, nature, and working it and shaping it to be a organized nature, basically, where kids can come and have these Jesus moments, these
Yeah.
mountain moments.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
camp gardener.
Yeah, he is camp gardener, and he's planting seeds.
Yeah.
And they're multiplying, and they're planting seeds. And like this week, we have Nathan Burrow here, who poured life into them and was a gardener in his time.
Yeah.
And you have Riley, you have Brenna, you have Lance, you have Logan, all these people who were kids under his care. Now they're planting seeds and doing kingdom work.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're lighting it in disciples.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta ask you. I asked everybody their top five something, right? So this is my top five for you. This is my top. Well, no, let me tell this first, because I had a mountaintop moment. There was this kid. I remember whenever I first started coming to leadership camp, and me and Riley, we met while he was a youth minister in Temple, and I was in youth ministry. But there was this strange young man who would come to camp, but he didn't just come to camp to have fun, but he would invite his friends, and he would minister to his friends, and then he would, you know what Kim talking? I thought that was so odd, because like at first I had to be forced to come to camp as a kid, and then whenever I started coming to camp, it was about me, and I'm trying to make sure, okay, I gotta make sure I look fly, while at the same time, I want to make sure I don't do stupid stuff and look crazy for the talent shows and things of that nature. But Pristine is a camper bringing other kids to camp, and it was at Camp Hensel. And man, it was so powerful. It was your friend. I think he had a box. Can't remember the kid's name.
Yeah, I think Mason or something like that.
Yeah, but you brought him to camp, and you had been teaching him, and you had been studying with him, and you baptized him at camp. And I'm standing on the side, and it's probably not a big deal to you, because I don't know how you felt in the moment, but seeing that was so powerful, man.
Yeah. I mean, he's my friend till this day, and I kind of forget sometimes that it happened. I was just at his wedding the other day, actually.
Yeah. That's not normal.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like what you said. Like, there's just so many people that have just invested into this camp thing, to where, I mean, you just feel the love, And for me, I was a kid that was coming from Japan, didn't really know how to be an American yet, and having a really hard time fitting in. And camp was a place I could come to fit in. And there would be not just kids, but adults that were willing to talk to me and, put up with my weird quirkiness and stuff. So, I mean, I guess it's just felt natural, It's the only thing that made sense to do, I guess, is to share it with others. And And you know, the thing is, like, there's like I look back at those times, and like I legitimately see good things, you know, about all of that. But I mean, if I'm being honest, like there's there's a level of, I think, complexity even to like the person I used to be, and you know, mixed motives sometimes.
Yeah.
Of, you know, and I think there was this legitimately wanting to like share Jesus with people, but also, you know, there was a level of like me wanting to pad my numbers, you know, and you know, bring people to Jesus because you know, it made me look good and I could get attention from it. And again, like that's not to say it was all not genuine, but it's just it's a mixed bag, I guess. It's more but I think God uses that still, you know.
Yeah.
He used that still, and
That's a part of your growth.
yeah.
That's a part of your growth. And you only know what you know when you know it. And you were full in, knowing what you knew at that time. And I was really, really, and still am impressed with you, with your drive and your commitment to the kingdom.
Yeah.
And you could be doing a whole lot of other things, but you just spent 2 weeks at camp.
I appreciate it.
And
Yeah.
that's powerful.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Go ahead and pat yourself on the back. Nobody else is gonna do it. You gotta celebrate the wins, man. I used to whenever I first got into ministry, especially, I still don't like for people to give me accolades or whatever, but it's just like what I've realized is there are gonna be some dry seasons, man.
Yeah.
Celebrate the wins.
Mm-hmm.
There's some droughts coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been a good 2 weeks too. It's been fun, and I mean, I always feel like I get more out of camp than these kids do sometimes, you know? Like you know, I had a pretty amazing moment actually that had to do with Riley, where I mean, I guess it's another mountaintop moment. That was the other one I had in mind, but Riley spoke, I think, on Thursday or something. He had a keynote, and you know, I'm not really a person to get moved by sermons often. I guess I mean, I enjoy sermons, you know, I love a good sermon, but I usually approach it more with my head, you know. I find myself kind of trying to, you know, see the ins and outs of you know, the scriptures that they're presenting and stuff like that. But I mean, I just found myself just really captivated by my heart was captivated by what Riley was talking about. And I mean, I think it was definitely a Holy Spirit moment. But you know, I've had a lot of just, I guess, self-doubt, maybe, you know, I guess just shakiness, and not even just doubting myself, but just I mean, just genuine fear, I think, of what's in my future.
Yeah.
And because it's a lot. Like we're getting ready to I guess y'all probably haven't heard because Chris knows, but you know, me and my wife were getting ready to move to Alaska. Long story short, for kind of a missional reason. And I've just been, over the last few weeks, just kind of really like realizing how unprepared I am, you know, spiritually, but also, you know, just mentally and physically and all of that. And so I've had a lot of shakiness, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And Riley shared something, just kind of talking about how when we're chasing God and we're, you know, kind of,
Keep that in.
you know, radically doing that, you know,
So sorry.
you're good. When we're chasing God and we're radically doing that, he gives us his grace, you know. And then he went and talked about Philippians 4:13, you know, the verse about how we can do all things through Christ. And his angle was kind of from a point of weakness. And I mean, I just really felt that. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm explaining that in a good way, but it, especially coming from Riley, just knowing what he's been doing the last 3 years, and radically really trying to trust in Jesus and follow him. I don't know, there's just some emphasis on that, I guess. It felt like the Spirit was doing something. So,
Yeah. Almost if, here's what I hear you saying. Almost as if where we're lacking, God fills in the void.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And it just felt like God was saying through Riley, like, it's okay. Like, I know you've got some fears, but I'm calling you to do this for a reason. Like, you're going for a reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think I need a little more time maybe to to process it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a moment where I just felt God's presence really,
Right.
really strongly. So
If it helps any, man, I know that one thing that I've been able to learn and experience in ministry is in those times. First off, those times are the ones that you hold on to, because those times, once you get over it, it's just like, oh, that was simple. But remember the times in between, the blessings.
yeah,
Now that's going to be precious, but man, the most fruitful things happen when we are ill-equipped.
Mm.
We are ill-equipped because it gives room for God to
Yeah.
get the glory. If we go into something knowing that I'm all that in a bag of chips, which is a
Yeah.
very old people phrase, then God doesn't get all the glory.
Yeah.
But if we go into something and people can see, okay, Kristen had no idea about this, he didn't know this and that. Who else is to give the praise to but to God?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm I haven't been super vocal about it because I'm trying to, keep my head low and not try to toot my own horn. But I mean, it really feels like when I step back and think about it, like we're in a super vulnerable place. Like at my apartment right now, all we have is a carpet left.
Yeah.
We've gotten rid of everything else.
Yeah.
Like we've sent about 7 or so boxes,
Yeah.
to Alaska, and we've got a couple other things we're taking, but it's we're in that place where like we've got nothing
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And we're starting over. And again, I try not to think about it too much because I don't want to let my head get too big, but I think for the sake of this conversation too, like, again, we're in that place and it's scary.
Yeah.
We feel really vulnerable, and just getting that reminder that God's here, and he sees that, and he blesses that in the end. Just, it's really encouraging, I guess.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a baby, but
Yeah. No, man. I think it's okay. It's fine. Well, my favorite person to read about in the Bible is Elijah. Because he felt like he was alone.
Yeah.
He felt like there was no hope, and until he realized, yes, there are others who are, about the same life that I'm about.
Yeah.
And then a still small voice.
Mm.
And I find comfort in that. It's annoying at times because I'm like, God, I don't want to have to. I want you to be in the wind, and it's annoying, but I'm just like, okay. At this point in time in my life, I know how God works. I know how He moves. And whenever it gets to a point to where it doesn't make sense, now I'm just like, okay, well, show up.
Yeah.
And if possible, quickly.
Preferably quickly.
Yeah. So man, I love that you guys both are still living and doing kingdom work, man.
Yeah.
Like whenever you guys, especially you, told me what you were doing with your life, and then Emma talking about what she was going to do with her life. Okay, they're still, like, you're still doing abnormal things, but it's because you belong to God that you don't look like the world. So I just encourage you to continue.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Keep doing what you do, man.
Yeah.
You'll be amazed by what God does.
Thank you. I mean, it's almost, it feels like one of those things where I feel like I have no choice but to go down this path. Like I have to. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I know I won't be satisfied, and I won't be happy if I don't follow God.
Yep.
Period. And it's scary, and there's some things that are hard, but it's worth it. And and God gives you those little moments. He puts bread crumbs along the path, so to say, and he feeds you. So anyways, yeah. I appreciate it, Chris.
I just got to celebrate one of those moments. I woke up today and my phone buzzed, and today is the 8-year anniversary of my ministry installation at Avenue G. And then I started going back through Google Photos, looking at pictures.
Man, congratulations.
So thanks.
Awesome.
I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, that guy has no idea what he's doing. And I think back to it, and I'm looking at the pictures, and I'm just like, I'm standing there as if I have confidence, but I had zero confidence. And I honestly didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it could be 14 podcasts about what God has done, and he's just amazed me with what he can do with somebody who is ill-equipped. So you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. Let me lighten the mood and end with this. Top 5, because you're over the games this week. Top 5 camp games.
Top 5 camp games.
Odd games. You're probably listening. Yeah. Top 5.
This might make me sound like a psychopath or something, but wrestling the kids in the pool.
Okay.
There's something therapeutic about taking a kid and just throwing them,
Launching them in the air.
And they love it too.
Yeah.
They love it too.
Yeah.
So that's probably is super fun. Pickleball has been one that's been
I haven't tried that.
surprisingly fun. I haven't played a lot, but I got to play a lot this week, and yeah, I like pickleball. I see why y'all be playing it. So
Yeah. Older generations.
Pickleball. I was playing a game called Exploding Kittens, I think.
I have no idea.
Which it's just a wacky card game.
Oh, I have heard of that.
Yeah, they've got like a line of different.
Yeah.
Like I think Taco Cat,
Okay.
something like that. That was really fun. Really simple. Let's see. I think 9 Square in the Air is another really fun one.
I like that one.
Yeah, we had a good moment the other day where we were all playing it, and it was just. It's fun how like you can get a ton of people involved playing that one, like you can have 20 people and you just stand in line.
Yep.
And there's 9 people.
I just love
playing.
It. Minimal movement.
It is.
You're exhausted. Nothing's gonna hurt
Yeah.
the next day.
Yeah. And it's a good level of competitive. Like you can spike the ball on people and I think that was 4. So let's see. I guess basketball. That sounds cliche,
Basketball.
but
It fits.
yeah. I've had some really great pickup basketball games at church camp.
Yeah.
The other day I was playing with your nephew, and he just absolutely destroyed me.
Really?
So yeah. 9-year-old.
I was dunking on him this morning. So
Well, I wasn't going in for the layups. I was trying to shoot, and of course I'm horrible at shooting.
yeah. Well,
And-
and let me say this: it's an 8-foot goal.
It was an 8-foot goal.
So I'm not.
Yeah.
Really dunking. I just want to make it sound realistic. I don't want people to listen to it and be like, "He's
What?
dunking."
Brother Chris?
I'm not really dunking. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you had one word to leave people with, what would it be?
I guess no context. Just the table.
The table.
The table.
Okay. All right. The table. You heard it. Thank you for listening.
The light always shines brightest through God's eyes. Now let's pivot and explore how faith meets culture. All right, so this kingdom culture section, this is the time in which we talk about where we see God in the real world, you know, because you can look at a flower and you can see God. You can look at a tree and see God. You can listen to a breeze and you can hear the voice of God. And I'm not saying audibly, but you can see God in the real world. And this is a section where we take faith and we combine it with the weirdness of the way I view the world. Maybe not weird, but I see the world differently than other people do. I see the world and I speak about God differently than I hear other preachers do it. I'm not trying to fit in anybody's mold. I've tried that before. It doesn't work out well. And so I'm just trying to be me. And so this episode where I'm talking about these mountaintop moments, I just thought about my favorite pastime, which is movies, games, comic books, TV shows and such. I thought about how the world is also leaning into recreating these mountaintop moments, the same way that we see Jesus on the mountaintop, this transfiguration moment. I also see this in our culture, in our media. First example. Now, you may not have even noticed it, that it was there, but The Lion King. I'm talking about the OG Lion King, the one that had the better songs, the one that was just overall better movie. The new one had those realistic looking animals with the dead eyes, but I'm talking about the OG Lion King. Simba runs away from home after Scar makes him think that his dad's death, Mufasa's death, was his fault. It wasn't, right? It wasn't his fault at all. But he goes and, Hakuna Matata and all this other stuff, it means no worries for the rest of your days, all that stuff, man. All that stuff passes and he's trying to find himself. And who does he see in the clouds? James Earl Jones. No, it's not James Earl Jones, Mufasa, who's voiced by James Earl Jones. And he gives him a little speech. And then the monkey, Rafiki, gives him a speech. And that mountaintop moment happened right there. You see within culture how it's happening, right? Mufasa tells Simba, look, you are living this way right now. This is actually how you're supposed to be living. Where else do you see that, Chris? Good question. Prime example, early 2000s, we see a character that is well known and beloved. You know him, well known and beloved. Well, maybe not all of you know him, but a lot of you guys are young pups. But there's a character by the name of Pootie Tang. Pootie Tang was a superhero, one of the first black superheroes. And Pootie Tang, his superpower came from the belt that his father had given him. His father was his hero, and he died a tragic death inside of a warehouse being mauled by a gorilla. And Pootie Tang would whip off that belt and whip it back in real fast. But something happened with Pootie Tang. Pootie Tang sold his likeness and image and all that stuff before EA and college football had the issue. And all of a sudden he lost who he was, right? He lost who he was, and then he lost his belt. And then it was like he lost his purpose. But Pootie Tang ends up on a farm, and he realizes, he has this mountaintop moment. He realizes the power wasn't in the belt, but it was in who he was as Pootie Tang. And so you see this all over the place, where culture tries to recreate this awe or this transcendence. And I think that's what happens at camp. You live in this hurried, rushed society, and it begins to turn you into this robot that just does stuff and doesn't really put meaning and thinking behind what you do. But when you go to Christian camp, you have a moment to pause that way of life and lean in and have this Leb Shemaiah, right? In Hebrew is Leb Shemaiah, this listening heart. And when you stop for a moment and you have time to listen from God, God reminds you of who you're supposed to be. Who are you being led by? The world tells one story, but God writes a better one. Now let's hear from you in our next segment. You ask, and now it's time for some answers. This is God Questions, where we dive into real life questions for real biblical truth.
Tune in, y'all, we
And after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John his brother, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with them. And Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 tents here, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. He was still speaking when, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and were terrified. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, Rise and have no fear. And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only. And as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus commanded them, Tell no one the vision until the Son of Man is raised from the dead. And the disciples asked him, Then why do the scribes say that first Elijah must come? He answered, Elijah does come, and he will restore all things. But I tell you that Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him, but did to him whatever they pleased. So also the Son of Man will certainly suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he was speaking to them of John the Baptist. All right, so I just read Matthew chapter 17, verses 1 through 13. And the question itself is, why does God seem closer at camp or on the mountain, quote unquote, the mountain, than in everyday life? And this is what I see. This is what I feel. This is what I see here in this text. I also sometimes we feel like God is closer to us when we're at camp, or when we're at a ladies' day, or when we're at a youth conference, or whenever, because we're standing on a quiet mountain, we're at a retreat. And that's because these places help us to focus. There's less noise. There's fewer chores, because there are chores at camp. There's more time to pray. There's more time to sing. There's more time to meditate on the words of God. And we see the same thing happening in Matthew 17. Jesus, he takes his closest 3, his inner circle, Peter, James, and John, and he takes them to this high mountain, and Jesus starts shining bright like the sun, man. It's amazing, and it stands out. And then also, not only that, but Moses and Elijah are there. And it's amazing if you see what Peter said. Peter's like, this is awesome. He said, Jesus, I want to build altars here, right? Or some versions say shelters. But I want to build 3 altars here. And he wants to stay there. He wants to stay on that mountain forever. I think he wanted to stay there because he felt like God's presence is here. It's like, okay, God, you've shown yourself to be here. This is where we need to be. But here's the thing. That's not what God is about, right? His mission isn't about a certain few people receiving the best of him and then it's stopping there. Jesus didn't let them stay. Jesus led them back down the mountain. He explained what he explained to them. And, God isn't only on the mountaintop. And that's what we need to understand. I know that we love going to these places, these ladies' days, these men's conferences, these youth conferences, these camps. But we need to understand that God isn't only in these places, right? And you may be saying within yourself, well, Chris, I don't see him. Well, that's because you haven't brought him to where you are yet. You haven't brought him there yet. You need to bring them there so that people can experience what you experience when you go to the ladies' day, the men's conferences, the youth days, the youth conferences, the summer camps. You bring that there. He's with us in the regular everyday life. He's at school. He's at work. He's in the kitchen. He's on the highways that we drive on. He's in the middle of our chores. And so when we're at camp or any other places, we can see God more, or we can see God more clearly because we've stepped away from the distractions But God doesn't move closer to us only on the mountain. We just pay better attention there. So if God is feeling further away in your everyday life, remember this: He has not left you. We just need to slow down, pray, and look for Him right where we are. The same God on the mountain is the God who rides home with us on the bus. It's the same God who rides home with us from work. It's the same God that was there at the camp. It's the same God that was there at the ladies' day and the youth conference and the men's conference. It's the same God. He stands with us, even at the sink while we're washing dishes. He walks with us as we walk on the treadmill at the gym. He's there. On every ordinary day, He's there. Will you bring that mountaintop experience to someone else? Great questions spark greater faith, and faith grows when we put it into practice. Let's roll into our final segment. Discipleship is more than what we believe. It's how we live it out. Welcome to Training in Righteousness, where faith meets discipline. I don't know about you, but I've enjoyed so greatly hearing the testimony from Riley, and also hearing from a camper who is now a camp counselor in Pristine. Those were amazing testimonies, and I hope that you look those guys up online and see what they're up to and how they're shining today. But this segment is where the rubber meets the road. This is the section where I usually like to share with you some spiritual disciplines. And so this week I want you to build an altar where you are. And you're like, okay, Chris, I don't want to build an altar. I can't build. I don't have the hands. I don't have the brain for it. Well, I'm talking about building a different altar today. In the Spiritual Disciplines Handbook by Adele Calhoun, journaling is defined as a tool for reflecting on God's presence, guidance, and nurture in daily comings and goings. Journals can be kept regularly or during time of transitions. The desire for this, as she states, is to be alert to life, to be alert to my life through writing and reflecting on God's presence and activity in and around and through me. Psalm chapter 25, verse number 4 says, "Show me your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths." I recommend myself, I'm not getting paid to say this, but I do recommend using Moleskine journals. Moleskine journals are amazing for this type of thing. I also use my tablet and my phone that has a stylus built into it to journal as well. And you may be saying also, well, just like I don't have the ability to build, I also don't have the ability to write. Well, you can also journal in many different ways. You can journal by drawing pictures. You can journal by doodling, what you see. It comes in all different forms. And so whether or not you want to write a poem, whether or not you want to take clippings from newspaper articles, whether or not you want to make a collage or just capture quotes, that's totally up to you. Journal in a way that helps you to remember who God is and what He is doing in your life presently and currently. It's a time in which you can stop and just see, what is God saying to me? What is He showing me right now in this time? What can I write down? What can I collect? What can I draw so that I can come back to it and hear from God over and over and over again? Treat this as your mountaintop moment. This week, I want you to ask how you can carry what you have captured in your journal back to where you work, back to where you shop for your groceries, back to the gym where you work out, back to the school where you learn what you learn. Now, I know you have the big biceps and the six-pack, but what do you look like spiritually speaking? Are you exercising? Are you training in righteousness? Let's not only be physically fit, but also spiritually fit. Be led. Thanks for hanging out with me today on the LED podcast. I hope that it blessed you. Want to stay connected and shine even brighter? Visit BeLED.org for free Bible studies and links to all my socials and merch. Keep shining and step into the light and be led.
Yeah. Light emitting disciples. We LED by Christ. Tune in, y'all, we shining so bright. CW Stevens, he the host with the vision. Bringing truth and light, let's complete the mission. Light emitting disciples, we LED.